You are now streaming worldwide on RadioOnFire.com and the Radio on Fire app.
Welcome back. Your man Domagate in here. Domagate in the morning on the all-new RadioOnFire.com. So glad to be here. Happy Tuesday to everybody. A lot of stories to get into, a lot of news to uncover, a lot of news to discuss. Of course, we are here daily, 8 a.m. for the live stream. Of course, you can check us out on demand anywhere you get your podcast. Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, of course, Radio on Fire, WRF Radio app, a lot of places. Of course, youtube.com/DJ Diamond K. The United States has recovered most of the ransom that was paid after this Colonial Pipeline hack that happened last month. Of course, if you're on the East Coast like me, you were definitely aware of this fiasco. So the Justice Department has recovered most of the multi-million-dollar ransom. Multi-million-dollar. And of course, hackers, the cyber attack caused the operation of the nation's largest fuel pipeline to halt its operations. So the Justice Department, this thing that they did, this recovery, they seized cryptocurrency paid to this Russian-backed hacker group. It's the first of its kind to be undertaken by a specialized ransomware task force. Of course, Trump and Putin are going to be really angry about this. Did you notice how when Trump was talking about the hacks that have been happening, he said not mention the name of Russia at all? He is scared and shook of Russia. Scared and shook. Anyway, this rare victory in the fight against ransomware has U.S. officials, I guess, happy. The officials scrambled to comfort a rapidly accelerating threat. This rapidly accelerating threat is targeting critical industries around the country. So they said this: by going after the entire ecosystem that fuels ransomware and digital extortion attacks, including criminal proceeds in the form of digital currency, aka cryptocurrency, we will continue to use all of our resources to increase the cost and consequences of ransomware and other cyber-based attacks. This coming from the Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco. Well, she had a press conference today announcing the operation. So Georgia's colonial-based, it's based in Georgia, the Colonial Pipeline, right? It supplies roughly half of the fuel consumed on the East Coast. Major. So they shut down operations May 7th after this gang of cyber criminals using the DarkSide ransomware variant. They broke into the company's computer system. So this ransomware variant used by DarkSide has been the subject of an FBI investigation since last year. And it's one of more than 100 that law enforcement officials are now scrutinizing. And this is according to the FBI. So the deputy director of the FBI said that colonial officials have said that they took their pipeline system offline before the attack could spread to its operating system. And they decided to pay the ransom 75 Bitcoin, which was then valued at roughly 4.4 million. So they did this with the hopes of bringing itself back online as soon as it could. So the Colonial Pipeline's president and chief executive, Joseph Blount, is going to testify before a congressional panel later on this week. This is going to be interesting. So in a statement yesterday, he said that he was grateful for the FBI's efforts and said that holding the hackers accountable and disrupting their activities is the best way to deter and defend against future attacks. We also have to make sure that people are vigilant. People that work for your agency, your company, your business, you got to be careful when you're opening these emails. That's for damn sure. So cryptocurrency is favored by cyber criminals because it enables direct online payments regardless of the location, wherever you are in the world. But in this case, the FBI was able to identify a virtual currency wallet used by the hackers and recovered the proceeds from there. The FBI's deputy director said. So this is interesting. This is interesting because, I was wondering how they were able to do this. So the Justice Department did not provide details, obviously, on how they obtained a key for the specific Bitcoin address, but said that law enforcement had been able to track multiple transfers of the cryptocurrency. He continued, for financially motivated cyber criminals, especially those presumably located overseas, cutting off access to revenue is one of the most impactful consequences that we can impose. That's true. So when we're talking about this Bitcoin, Bitcoin is volatile. The amount of Bitcoin that was seized, 63.7, which is currently valued at 2.3 million. The price of Bitcoin tumbled after this attack, amounted to about 85% of the total ransom, which is the exact amount that the cryptocurrency tracking firm Elliptic says that it believes was taken or was the affiliate who carried out the attack got. So the ransom software provider, which was DarkSide, would have gotten the other 15%. But they're pulling off all these hacks. I guess they're like, okay, you can have that money. We ain't worried about that. They need to shut these hackers down. Definitely. So weeks after this Colonial Pipeline attack, a ransomware attack attributed to Revil, which is a Russian-speaking gang, and has made some of the largest ransomware demands on record in recent months, right? Disrupted production at Brazil's JBS, which is the meat processing company. So the ransomware business has really evolved over time. It is a highly compartmentalized racket with labor divided among providers of the software that locks the data. Ransom negotiators, hackers who break into targeted networks, and hackers skilled at moving undetected through those systems. Right? And they're really trying to get sensitive data. And even call centers in India employed to threaten people whose data was stolen to pressure them for extortion payments. Definitely something serious. And as the world has gotten more digital, these are some of the things that your company, your business, just you in your personal life, you have got to be mindful of. Got to be mindful. Just tuning in, Don McKay in the morning on the all-new RadioOnFire.com. Here on the program, we deliver the biggest political and trending news stories of the day with interviews and original reporting from across the country, emanating from our studios in Atlanta and Baltimore. Show is fun, show is upbeat, but also want to expose what is really happening in this country. Of course, Radio on Fire is Black Voices giving you the American story, and it is a hell of a story. In Baltimore, author Wes Moore has announced that he is running for governor of Maryland. So Moore is a Democrat and focused his campaign announcement on addressing inequities in the state of Maryland. He said in a video that he released on Twitter that here in Maryland, we have some of the nation's most prosperous communities and some of its most impoverished. This is true. Moore is 42 years old and also noted that the state is home to the world-class medical institutions, right? Several of them. And people who can't afford basic care, as well as some of the best schools and then some of the most underfunded. Moore is the former CEO of the Robin Hood Foundation, which focuses on fighting poverty in New York. Moore of Baltimore wrote the best-selling book, The Other Wes Moore, One Name, Two Fates. Also, he has been the host of Beyond Belief on the OWN network. Moore is not alone in this race. He is the 8th candidate to announce that he will seek the Democratic nomination for next year's governor's race. Thankfully, Governor Larry Hogan, Republican, is term limited. So it's going to be an interesting race for the governorship of Maryland. So we're definitely going to be following that very closely. Let's do this. Let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come back on the other side with more news here on Don McKay in the morning on the all-new RadioOnFire.com.
Giving you more talk, more news, and more music. It's Radio on Fire.
All right, we are back. You man, Don McKay in here. Of course, Don McKay in the morning on the all-new RadioOnFire.com. In Baltimore news, 3 people shot in 2 separate shootings in the area known as Fells Point over the weekend. So Baltimore City Police are investigating these 2 separate shootings, which led to 3 shooting victims early Sunday morning in Fells Point. According to police, around 12:30 a.m., 2 Southeast District officers were on foot patrol in the area of Thames Street at Broadway when they heard what they thought were fireworks. Unidentified citizens told the officers that 2 people had been shot in the 1700 block of Thames Street. Upon responding, the officers located 2 males ages 24 and 26 who had been shot. Moments later, police responded to a call for a shooting at Alisana at Broadway Street, South Broadway Street. So the officers located an unidentified male who had been shot in the head. Police say that all 3 victims were transported to an area hospital. The first 2 victims are being treated for non-life-threatening gunshot wounds, and the 3rd victim, the one that was shot in the head, is in serious but stable condition. Police detectives are investigating these shootings. So it is, there's so much going on. So if you're not familiar with the Fells Point area, it is it's an area that people go and party in. It's near the water. cobblestone. It's a nice area, but we've been having a lot of crime in that area. The mix of alcohol and easy access to guns has really been toxic to that, just to the country in general, but definitely to the Fells Point area. They've been dealing with a lot. So in response to this, Mayor Brandon Scott of Baltimore and Police Commissioner Michael Harrison spoke about the shootings that happened in Fells Point.
So it is an ongoing investigation. Investigators, since the time of that incident, have been looking through camera footage and looking for more camera footage. As of yet, they have not yet come to me with an identification of a shooter, but we're still going through tons and tons of video, and we're still looking for more video. Well, we're always assessing when and where to enhance security. Certainly, we're taking that into consideration as we balance out the needs of the entire city and what's actually needed in Fells Point. So the answer is yes, we're working on that.
And just one second. I think, Dave, it's a couple of things that we have to talk about, and thank you for your question. We have to understand that there were officers there. This shooting happened 25 feet away from officers, right? And we have to understand, when we have folks who are that brazen, that means that they don't care about the consequences. And that's why we are going to make sure that we go and remove these people from our streets. Because if you're that brazen to do that in front of police officers, that means you don't care about going to jail. You don't care about how long you're going to jail. Everyone has to understand that. And we have to make sure that we're consistently doing that. We're going to always make sure that we work to make sure that things are in place, not just in Fells Point, but across the city. But we also have to be able to have people gather, especially allowing our younger black people to gather and not have this nonsense. You can see time and time again, I know you probably comb through the social media and just see people saying, why can't we go anywhere and not have these things happen? People are sick of it. We have to be better as people too. We cannot allow our friends to be that weak, that they are that emotional. We have to hold ourselves accountable as a community and not to allow our people that we know to just say, oh, if I get into any little minor dispute, we're going to ruin everything for everyone else. We will find these people. We will continue to put things in place, but everyone has to understand the mindset of someone that would do it that close to a police officer.
Naturally, you can tell that Mayor Scott is frustrated with this crime that is happening. And the police commissioner said that the investigators are looking through camera footage, have not identified the shooter. Mayor Scott is confident that they're going to catch whoever was responsible. And ironically, the mayor said that the shooting happened 25 feet away from police officers. And he was just talking about the brazen nature that someone would have to have in order to pull something like this off, to even attempt something like this. And so that is something that, you know, the powers that be are trying to get a handle on with the crime that is just happening. Speaking of crime, murder and hate crime charges have been announced against a man in the beating of two Korean liquor store owners. Marilyn Mosby, who they claim doesn't charge people with crimes, right? Marilyn Mosby announced attempted murder and hate crime charges in the incident. So the multiple count indictment describes 3 incidents where investigators say that Daryl Doyles went into several liquor stores and became irate because he was asked to wear a mask.
Can you explain what this day means to you hearing the indictment?
Yeah, because I mean, I'm a Korean American, and also my parents who lived in all these years, and there was a lot of racial issues going on, but we are very quiet people, and we never spoke up, and this kind of thing. I'm very thankful that this could be a stepping stone for a lot of Asian people who are getting the mistreatment, but because of a language barrier and all that, they never really spoke up. And this is the stepping stone for them, that we need to speak out. And I'm very glad that we will get justice. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yes.
Thank you.
What is your relation to the victims in this case?
I don't have a direct relationship, but
Okay.
I'm a president of Korean Society of Baltimore County.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
good. And have you spoken to them? How are they doing?
They are doing, they're still very shocked and they're still very sad that these kind of things happen. But they're trying to kind of get a justice from this incident. So, yeah.
Health-wise?
That's why they are recovering, but they're still suffering a lot of stuff. As you see, people could die from this. So,
And
yeah,
how bad were the injuries that they're dealing with? Like, what are they dealing with as far as?
They have like bad dreams and kind of a fearfulness, and besides the physical injuries, they have a lot of mental injuries, I believe. Yeah, so.
Have they opened the store?
I don't think so.
Today, a Baltimore City grand jury returned a 22-count indictment against Daryl Doles for offenses that occurred on May 2nd, 2021 in the city of Baltimore, which include 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 9 counts of a hate crime, 2 counts of attempted second-degree murder, 2 counts of first-degree assault, 3 counts of second-degree assault, 2 counts of dangerous weapon with intent to injure, 1 count of malicious destruction of property under $1,000, 1 count of attempted malicious destruction of property under $1,000. If convicted, Mr. Doles faces up to 2 life sentences plus 65 years in prison for his alleged conduct. While this defendant is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty, the indictment alleges that after Doles was denied entry to an Asian American business because of his refusal to wear a mask, which was required, he returned to the business armed with a large piece of lumber and attacked the security guard who denied him entry. After being disarmed and removed from the store by its Asian American owner, the defendant went on to an alleged rampage and ransacked 2 other Asian American owned businesses and assaulted and attempted to kill 2 Asian American women, making clear his hateful motive. Among the manner and means by which the defendant conducted and participated in the criminal acts of attempted first-degree murder and related charges are as follows. On May 2nd, 2021, at approximately 11:25 p.m., Mr. Doles entered the Linden Discount Liquors at 904 West North Avenue to use a lottery machine. The security guard asked Mr. Doles to put a face mask on due to the COVID restrictions in the store. Doles refused, and the security guard officer asked Doles to leave the store. Doles grew angry, threw the lottery machine on the ground, kicked it across the store, and walked out of the store. Approximately 10 minutes later, Mr. Doles returned to the store claiming he left personal property there. The security guard again told Mr. Doles he must leave, and Doles left. Doles then returned with a 2x4 piece of lumber, took a full swing, and struck the security guard in the right rib cage and right elbow and right wrist. The security guard suffered minor injuries, including a bruise to his elbow, wrist area, and his rib cage. The owner of the store, an Asian American man, intervened in the altercation and physically removed the piece of lumber from Mr. Doles' grasp. Mr. Doles subsequently fled the location on foot. The lottery machine, valued at or under $1,000, was rendered inoperable because of Mr. Doles' actions. Minutes later, at approximately 11:35, Mr. Doles entered 4040 liquor location at 2139 Pennsylvania Avenue. Mr. Doles walked into the store, kicked a display window, knocking down wine bottles, and exited the store. The owner of the store, a different Asian American man, exited the store and told Mr. Doles not to come back to his store. Doles turned around and said, "F Chinese," and then turned, walking northwest. The Asian American man had never seen Mr. Doles or had any interactions with Mr. Doles prior to this incident. Mr. Doles walked about a block northwest and entered Wonderland Liquors at around 11:45, located at 2045 Pennsylvania Avenue. Upon entering the store, he was observed by Haishin Williams, a 67-year-old Asian American woman of Korean descent, to be repeatedly kicking the display window, knocking things over, and causing a disturbance. Miss Williams had never seen Mr. Doles or had any interaction with him. Prior to this incident, Mr. Doles kicked the display window 12 times before Miss Williams was able to tell Mr. Doles that they were closed and they had to leave. Miss Williams called 911. Dispatch advised that they would send an officer to the store. About 6 to 7 minutes later, Mr. Doles left. Miss Williams went to the front door to close and lock the location. And right as Miss Williams was beginning to close the door, Mr. Doles appeared with a piece of concrete, 1 to 2 inches thick, and square in hand. Miss Williams saw this and tried to grab it from him. The two locked arms and fell to the ground. Mr. Doles grabbed Miss Williams by the hair, pushed her face to the ground. Miss Williams tried to get the block out of Mr. Doles' hand, but he pulled it away while kneeling on top of Miss Williams and struck her 3 times in the head with a concrete block. Miss Williams' sister, Hai Kyung-yo, a 66-year-old Asian American woman of Korean descent, rushed over to try to stop Mr. Doles, but Mr. Doles hit her once in the head with a block the moment she tried to grab him. Miss Yoon had never seen Mr. Doles or had any interactions with Mr. Doles prior to this incident. Mr. Doles got up, threw Miss Williams down to the ground, and tried to fend off Miss Yoon as she tried to push him out of the store. Miss Yoon got Mr. Doles as far as the front door, but he grabbed her by the hair and threw her to the ground. Miss Williams ran over to aid her sister and pulled Mr. Doles' COVID mask off. Mr. Doles then struck Miss Yoon and Miss Williams in the head with a concrete block yet again. Miss Williams fell on top of her sister, and Mr. Doles struck Miss Williams in the head again. Miss Williams fell down, and Mr. Doles struck both Miss Williams and Miss Yoon in the head with a concrete block yet again. Yoon crawled away and got up as Mr. Doles dragged Miss Williams by her hair on the ground back into the store. Miss Yoon managed to get the block away from Mr. Doles and pushed him out of the store. Covered in blood, both Miss Williams and Miss Yoon came back into the store and called 911. Approximately 45 minutes after the attack, with the assistance of Miss Yoon's son, officers detained Mr. Doles until the primary officer arrived. Mr. Doles sat on the ground uncuffed while waiting for the primary officer, and a person whom Mr. Doles referred to as Sean was on the scene. Doles asked Sean to tell the officers he was elsewhere. Sean declined to do so and said Doles shouldn't have assaulted that lady, and the following conversation ensued. Mr. Doles, they need to go back to their country. Sean, that's what this was all about? Mr. Doles, she shouldn't have came out. They effed your country up, but you still love them. F out of here. I won't eat out of their MFing stores. Sean, I love my country to death. Mr. Doles, I'll order out before I eat that MFing food. Williams suffered multiple lacerations. Miss Williams suffered multiple lacerations to the head, bled profusely, and had swelling and bruising around her eye. She was transported to shock trauma for her injuries. She received stitches in 3 places on her head. 1 gash required a plastic surgeon to provide 3 layers of stitching to close the wound. She has missed work since the event and suffers from headaches and dizziness. Miss Yoon also suffered bleeding lacerations to her forehead and a possible concussion. Miss Yoon was transported to Grace Medical Center to be treated. She suffered a gash to her temple. It was too deep and near too many veins to stitch safely. They could only bandage as best they could and follow up to ensure the wound is closing and healing properly. While again, the defendant is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty, and I want to be clear that an indictment is not a conviction. However, today's indictment does demonstrate yet again my office's commitment to applying one standard of justice for all. We remain committed to fairness and equality, and we will not tolerate racially motivated crimes of violence inflicted on members of our community. What we've all bore witness to over the past year is resentment over coronavirus restrictions, which have unleashed a tidal wave of unjustified, vicious assaults against Asian Americans across this nation. This misplaced anger and hatred toward our Asian American community members is disturbing, unacceptable, and will not be tolerated in the city of Baltimore.
That was State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby. According to the indictment, on May the 2nd, 2021, around 11:25 p.m., Doles entered the Linden Discount Liquors store in order to use the lottery machine. Security guard asked Doles to put on a face mask Doles refused. The guard then asked him to leave the store. He grew angry, threw the lottery machine to the ground, kicked it across the store floor, and left the store. He then went to another location and knocked over some bottles of wine, screamed out an obscenity, and then went to the third place where this terrible assault happened. So according to the indictment, Doles grabbed one of the ladies by the hair and pushed her face to the ground and tried to block her from getting away, and he pulled away, kneeled on top of her, struck her several times in the head with the cinder block. Her sister rushed over to try to stop her, and he hit her in the head with the block the moment she tried to grab him. So I mean, he assaulted a 67 and 66 year old women. So it is not going to go well for him. Mosby says that Doles faces up to 65 years in prison if convicted. On to other Maryland news. Maryland casinos have set a new monthly revenue record for the second time in 3 months. The Maryland Lottery announced yesterday that 6 casinos generated $172 million in the month of May. I constantly hear all these people complaining about stimulus money, and you can see that a lot of stimulus money is being spent at these casinos. Allegedly, these casinos contributed $73.4 million to the state of Maryland last month. That is an increase of about $9 million compared to the $63 million that it contributed to the state just 2 years ago. So the Maryland casinos were closed from March the 16th to June 19th last year because of the pandemic. And they talk about these contributions to Education Trust Fund in May were at $53.3 million. So what did this trust fund, there was this whole thing when they put casinos on the ballot, that money was going to go to schools. This trust fund, why are so many schools broke? I mean, I know it's mismanagement, but this money is just sitting in some trust fund. What's really good? Casinos revenue is also supposed to support the communities where the casinos are located. Maryland's horse racing industry and small minority and women-owned businesses. So I've never liked this whole thing. Never really felt like there was any accountability for where this money goes. So they're just pulling in money. They're just pulling in money, the casinos, that is. But who knows? Who knows? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, at The Diamond K Show, at Radio on Fire. So, Johns Creek taps 28-year law veteran as its new police chief. So, the guy's name, the newly appointed police chief, is Mark J. Mitchell, and he will be only the third full chief to hold the position in the city's 14-year history. So he is newly appointed, no stranger to law enforcement. Obviously, the city manager, Ed Dinsmore, said in a statement that Mark J. Mitchell has been tapped for the position, bringing with him 28 years of law enforcement experience. So Johns Creek, Georgia, reports that Mitchell was most recently the chief of staff for the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice and was the police chief for the city of Canton before that. So the newly appointed top officer will take over the position from the interim chief, Roland Castro. So Castro had been in the seat since the resignation of the previous chief, who was Chris Byers. You remember that cloud of controversy that Chris Byers was in back in 2020. Byers resigned, receiving a $325K settlement, the reasons for which were initially kept confidential by the city. The resignation came just about a month after he was asked to take leave from the department, then placed on administrative leave in mid-June of that year, around the same time that Byers made a public post on social media criticizing the Black Lives Matter movement and religious leaders. He was wilding out. But back then, the city said it was not able to disclose the contents of the investigation. They did clarify that the matter was not related to Byers' Facebook post. So it turned out that he was actually asked to resign after an internal investigation went on into claims of inappropriate sexual language directed at a female employee before he became chief. So Mitchell, who will be sworn in on the June 21st City Council meeting, was chosen along with the group of finalists through a nationwide search conducted by the International Association of Chiefs of Police. The organization also included input from the community and city departments to develop a candidate profile, according to the statement. So hopefully Mark J. Mitchell is going to do a good job in this position. We definitely need officers and chiefs of police who do a good job. Doesn't matter where you are, whether you're talking about in Georgia or in Maryland or in your city or town. Definitely let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, at The Diamond K Show, at Radio on Fire. And of course, Diamond K in the Morning is available anywhere you get your podcast. Here on the program, we deliver the biggest political and trending news stories of the day, with interviews and original reporting from across the country emanating from our studios in Baltimore and Atlanta. As I say, the show is fun, show is upbeat, but also got to expose what's really happening in this country. New episodes drop 8 a.m., but I don't want you to miss any of our live broadcasts. In addition to the 8 a.m. program, we drop content throughout the day, live shows daily. So hit that notification bell so you get an alert whenever we go live. YouTube.com/DJ Diamond K. Definitely. Of course, I will be back here tomorrow. You can get breaking news and adult conversation covering topics that are important to Black culture. Visit radioonfire.com for our original radio, podcast, and of course, TV programs. You can support Diamond K in the Morning. And it is very easy to do that. I'm able to deliver our news and our views on Diamond K in the Morning because of our listeners, sponsors, and of course your donations. Diamond K in the Morning is powered by the people, and we need your support. Visit radioonfire.com/donate. You can make a one-time donation, join our VIP club, all of that. On social media, I am at The Diamond K Show, at Radio on Fire. And of course, I will be back tomorrow. See you guys.